Welcome to this session of the Cyber Leaders Exchange. My guest is Hansang Bae, the Public Sector Chief Technology Officer for Zscaler U.S. Government Solutions. Hansang, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I know that was a mouthful of an introduction, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think it's your title more than anything. It's a good long title. As we continue our discussion today around Zero Trust, it's clear the long-term effort requires much focus and planning as it does technology. And, Hansang, like most technology programs, IT probably is the easy part when it comes to Zero Trust. So that's where we're going to begin our discussion. Bureaucracy, leadership, the need to really understand why you're going somewhere, the change management. Is that really the key here to making Zero Trust successful?
Yeah, it may sound kind of odd to say that, but technology at this point is mature enough. We have 40 million concurrent customers doing Zero Trust as we speak. So it's not the technology. I think it's the mindset of this is transformational. And, to be honest, it's kind of vendor fault, right? Because we hyped it up as transformational, and it is. But when you say that, kind of the undercurrent is, oh, this is going to be hard. I have to turn Titanic, 5 Titanics in a row when it comes to federal government DODs of the world. So people need to plan, have a pre-planned meeting, the meeting for the planning of the meeting of the plan. So now we have this ginormous bureaucracy stepping in because we said it was transformational, and transformation is supposed to be hard. Ironically, Zero Trust doesn't have to be hard. There's so much practical side of Zero Trust that could get done very quickly, but we said it was transformational. So now we need more planning meetings. And I think that's some of the things that we're seeing right now.
Part of the reason why this can be done, a lot of success can be found, if you will, in the short term, the practical side, as you put it, is because a lot of the pieces are in place. Is that the conversations you're having with federal clients and federal potential clients that, hey, you already have this piece of Zero Trust and you have that piece of Zero Trust, and you just need to kind of bring them together and understand how they can benefit and be complementary?
So I would say yes on the technology side. The other is that there is no friction, because when a lot of the vendors are cloud first, it doesn't matter that it's cloud first or not, honestly, but when you are cloud first, you tend not to have you don't need to make infrastructure changes. You don't need to rack and stack equipment. You don't have to modify your routing to steer traffic this way or the other way. So the usual bottlenecks of adopting traffic, infrastructure changes goes away. So if you're location independent, if you're network independent, and you're device independent, think how fast you can roll that out. But this is, again, something new. So people still plan kind of the old way. And therein lies the friction, artificial friction, because the expectation that all these changes that most people are used to will still rule the day. And it doesn't have to be that way. The other is ironically, the hardest thing about Zero Trust is knowing who you're going to Zero Trust. So when you have a sprawling user base all over the world, when you have sprawling application, all with, people come and go, architects of that application come and go. Some applications just work, so it's just always running. People forget about dependencies, whatnot. So trying to figure out the landscape of what do I have actually turns out to be pretty hard to do. So these are some of the stumbling blocks. And the bigger you are, of course, more of the stumbling block you have.
So if the technology is, as you said, fairly mature, you mentioned, I think, 40 million customers or
concurrent
ZTA
customers.
Customers doing ZTA right now. What are you seeing for how organizations, again, federal, private sector, doesn't really matter, how are they overcoming this bureaucracy, this planning to plan of a planning meeting?
Yeah. So again, technology can help here. So one of our best recommendations is allow us to sit back and watch, see who's using what application, when and how, and what groups of servers get lit up when a particular application is used. So we can get a landscape of, hey, we have 80,000 users using this application day by day, and that application is made up of 16 servers. And oh, by the way, it has 2 legacy authentication methods that maybe no one knew about. So we can actually sit back and watch to see what it is we're up against. and then make recommendations on, this is least used. So why don't we, so it's kind of a bespoke thing. So you have two choices. Because it's least used, that could be the first to adopt this new zero trust because the impact is low. Or the other way of thinking about this is, remember, our adversary gets a vote, right? It's not as if they're going to sit back and say, oh, take your time. When you're ready, I'll continue my attack. Okay, that's not happening anywhere that I see. So the other school of thought is, because the technology is rather mature, it's pretty frictionless to adopt. Why don't we go for the biggest bang for the buck? You can start out slow. So 100 users, 1,000 users. And then you can go crazy, right? So I'll give you, for instance, one of our customers made a typo. So they meant to roll out 4,000 user to get kind of sense of it. They added a zero. So it's an order of magnitude bigger. They rolled out 40,000 user by mistake, but it was ho-hum, nothing burger, right? So nothing changed, no problems erupted as a result of that. So again, when you're cloud first, you kind of know about elasticity. And so instead of 4,000, it was 40,000, nothing broke. So then they say, you know what, we'll just keep at 40,000 and continuing on. So don't be afraid to kind of lean out there and start slow, but get comfortable, but then don't let us be the bottleneck to your journey to zero trust. And you can go as fast as you like. We'll be there to support you. So those are the two schools of thought. Let's start with something small or something big because the adversary gets a vote in this space. So let's not wait, give them an opportunity.
In some ways, that's the tech side of it. That's the culture side of it.
Mhm.
By starting out and making sure it works and make sure it doesn't break anything. Are you seeing that the conversations, because we've now been talking zero trust now for about 18 months, it's since the Office of Management Budget put out the strategy and put out the implementation plan. We've had some time around it. I imagine you're finding that your government customers, your public sector customers are much more comfortable in why zero trust matters, where is it going, how to find that success, again, whether either of those approaches you mentioned or many others.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things to unravel there, right? One is, unlike other technology, you'll never get to a finish line. And the other reason is there's no such thing as zero trust, right? It's a great marketing term. So kudos for coming up with zero trust. And the problem is, if someone is hell bent on doing you harm, they will find a way to do you harm. However, the job of zero trust is limit that blast radius as much as possible. And so the threat landscape changes. Think about what we were worried about 5-10 years ago, right? It was, is it McAfee? Is it Symantec? Is it antivirus? Or is it the 18 toolbars that your grandma has? Because every browser, every company wanted to add a toolbar. So some of you know that you've seen browser, bring up a browser and half the page is toolbars. Those were things we were worried about, not so much anymore. And as the threat landscape changes and evolves so much faster, we'll see that you will never finish on the journey of zero trust. It's going to be a continuum, a life cycle. So don't get in your head that if we do A, B, C, D, that we'll be done, right? Mission accomplished, and you'll never get there because the adversary will continue to evolve. And as a matter of fact, I have it right here. So I can show you something. So this, I don't know if you can see that well. This is a ChatGPT generated phishing letter that is so authentic that it was hard to differentiate from a real Bank of America notification. This coincided with a text alert referencing the same message and an email that referenced the same message. And it wasn't to click here for to send money to a Nigerian prince. It was to unlock my credit freeze that I have. Okay. Now, it was so authentic. And the biggest thing about this is that this language is 100% English native speaker. So, and this was ChatGPT, because I used to say, if all these phishing attacks hired a native English speaker, the letters wouldn't start with "hello, dear," right? That's a number one sign to delete that because it's phishing attack. And now it's not. This is a perfectly professionally written phishing attack. And again, this is what I mean about adversaries taking, opportunity to up their game. So our zero trust of least privilege, and always the other thing is we have this mindset of I have my CAC, I get it authenticated, I am a go at this station, and I'm free to do whatever I want from that point on. That's another big tectonic change we need to change, or another thought process that we have to change, that the evaluation of whether you're good or bad is continuous, right? Nonstop. And it's not just one gate guard you get through. Everything you do is under scrutiny, and that it can be taken away at a moment's notice, because that's what zero trust means. And for this reason, it's good and bad. It's bad that you'll never finish, but it's good in that your protective posture will just ramp up following the bad actors who are also innovating as fast as we're innovating on the security side.
Hansang, we're almost about out of time. Before I let you go, what's the big takeaway from our conversation today? What do you hope that the listeners, federal employees, contractors, and the like who are listening really understand about where they can go with zero trust?
It's time to stop planning, and it's time to test, execute, and roll out. Even if you pick the wrong one, it's okay, because that frictionless installation, for the most part, it's easy to unravel and pivot. You don't have 18 racks of things that you have to decommission and have change control to reinstantiate in infrastructure. So for that reason, don't be afraid to try out. In fact, you can try out 3-4 different solutions at the same time with different populace, and pick the one you like. So my advice is get going. Technology is mature enough, and our adversary gets a vote in cyber. And so we need to shut them down.
All right, very nice. I really much enjoyed our conversation today, but unfortunately, we're done with this session of the Cyber Leaders Exchange. So let me thank my guest. Hansang Bae is the Public Sector Chief Technology Officer for Zscaler U.S. Government Solutions. Hansang, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more from the Cyber Leaders Exchange.